And Kenya's nascent mining sector holds untold potential. However, in the way of realizing this lies challenges like the full operationalization, I almost get that wrong, of mining policy coupled by an undeveloped commodities value addition system. Stephen Mwakesi is the Chief Executive of the Kenya Chamber of Mines. He joins me now to get a better look at this sector. Good afternoon, Steve.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bonnie.
Steve, there's a lot of potential, and that's the word that comes every time we talk about the mining sector. Everyone talks about potential, but then there's so many things that stand in the way of this. First step has always been the mining policy, and we recently had that, but we haven't seen it take shape. Help us understand exactly where we are in terms of optimizing these opportunities.
Okay. Presently, the first thing that this Jubilee administration, when it came to power in 2013, was to create a ministry dedicated to mining.
Right.
And with that, there was more work done towards creating a national policy on mining and minerals.
Right.
And that policy has come to cabinet level right now. It's only now going to the next stage where it will be ratified by Parliament, and then we can have a comprehensive national policy on mining and minerals. But the one thing that has been most progressive is the institution of a mining bill that sought to replace a 70-year-old legislation that was enacted in 1940.
Right.
And presently we are at the very final stages with approval of Parliament and presidential assent.
Right.
And what the bill has done is that it has made what was a very archaic licensing and management structure within the sector become even more robust in terms of it being more modern and it being able to accommodate the new facets around financing for the extractive sector, especially mining.
Steve, let's talk about that archaic law, because it has cost us a lot, and one of the issues that always comes up, and this is not unique to Kenya, when you talk about mining in South Africa that has a well-developed system, is the issue of sharing of royalties. And we don't need to go far. Talo up the road into Turkana, locals feel they're not getting right recognition of being part of the community there. Are we closer to achieving a system where locals actually benefit from the resources in their places?
Indeed. I mean, the only framework that existed was just a spot on exactly how much royalties companies meant to pay to government in terms of minerals that are extracted. But that was only a charge without a clear demarcation of what happens once the royalty has been collected. This new law,
which obviously gave way to a lot of corruption.
Exactly. But this new law is absolutely clear. First of all, before anybody gets a mining license right now, you will have to have come up with what we call a community social investment plan. And this one makes sure that your investment in the community is not just a public relations activity, but it actually becomes a comprehensive investment that you're making into the particular society you're operating in to be able to acquire what we call the social license. In addition, there is, once royalties collected cumulatively by the national government upon payment by the mining company, there is a clearly stipulated ratio in which these royalties are supposed to be split. Now, you do understand the country now has a two-tier form of government. So there's 70%.
So this goes to the county government.
Exactly. So there's 70% going to the national government, 20% to the county government, and 10% is actually put back into the community itself.
So communities are not just relegated to being hired as drivers and people that carry staff.
Exactly. And in fact, right now what we're presently working on is creating the actual framework in which communities can be able to actually harness the amounts that have been allocated towards them.
Steve, I know you have a big conversation coming up, is it next week? And the question that comes to mind is, yes, that law obviously serves the big players in the market, but is there room for smaller players, people like me, the private sector, people who want to be part of this space? Is there room for smaller entrepreneurs who want to get in the mining sector?
Indeed, the rooms are quite numerous. Now, the first most important thing is that now we have a sort of law that allows you to play in all levels. You can either play at a small scale level, you can play at the large scale level, and there are different fiscal protections that are given to anyone who decides to put money into the extractive sector. Now, let's not get it twisted. this sector is actually a high risk investment that anyone would get into. It's, I think, one of the riskiest.
So people need to know that before they jump in.
You would need to know that before you get in. And you need to have the kind of appetite that's very patient, that can take between 5 to 10 years before you could be able to see any returns. And this is especially around the sector of exploration.
Yes.
Now, going forward, it's very important and imperative that we enlighten more of our people to be able to know where to put money, even our pension funds and things like that, to be able to look into funds that enable.
Because people don't think about mining. I don't think about mining.
Yes,
I'll buy a piece of land instead.
Yes.
Right.
And this kind of creating a more savvy investor who's able to look at further options rather than just real estate, and to also consider other avenues such as the extractive sector is the reason why we are setting up this conference that's going to be happening next week, so that we can have a lot more people engaged within the extractive sector.
So, big concern for the Kenyan mining sector that is obviously at its infant stage has been, we don't see a lot of conversations about value addition, because ultimately that is what will give us the big ticket that we're looking for. Where are plans in regards to setting up value addition systems? Because we keep exporting raw materials that will not get us anything.
Well, and this is even where an additional framework comes in for how to get local and private local investors into the market and into the scene with the extractive sector. There's a lot of industrial minerals, a lot of construction minerals which are being mined and extracted and exported. Now, with the advent of better infrastructure, a lot more investment by government in energy, there is also a semblance of demand also from the sector itself to create what we are calling value addition centers, and there's one which is already currently being built by the government.
Run by who? The government?
The government is now putting forward a framework whereby they've created the building within Taita Taveta, and with the private sector is being encouraged right now to come in and be able to put in the equipment, the kind of skill sets that are required, so that you can be able to add value to the gemstones that are being produced in Taita Taveta region. Now, the same thing also applies with regard to industrial minerals. I am entertaining a lot of conversations with regard to ballast crushing, and also we have a lot of graphite and things like that. So it's very important that right now we encourage and people get to learn what you could do with minerals beyond just a simple export.
Where do they get this information?
Well,
I consider myself fairly informed, but I don't know anything about mining.
Well, it's quite available online, but also organizations such as the Chamber of Mines, this is the primary purpose in which we exist. We're here to help investors be able to see where the potential linkages. There's a lot going on in the country, and there's a lot of activity going on, especially with energy. Now, with a lot more energy, we can be able to do a lot of things that we could not have imagined before. I know there's right now a strategy around iron and steel. So this can only be possible if we can be able to get more people informed of what could happen.
Okay. Great. We have to leave it there. Many thanks. Stephen Mwakesi is the Chief Executive at the Kenya Chamber of Mines.